time. But without further delay, Noah, Tom, and Danielle, I'm going to ask you not only to introduce yourself, but I would love to hear what your favorite tradition at Reed is. And when you introduce yourself, let us know your department, your area of expertise. Let us know how long you've been teaching at Reed. And then, yeah, share your favorite Reed tradition. And Danielle, I'll have you go first.
All right. My name is Danielle Cass. I'm in the chemistry department. I have been here for 16 years, I believe. Um, my area of expertise, I'm a biochemist or a bioanalytical chemist. I kind of jump between both fields. If we talk about research later on, you'll hear I have a little biochemistry and a little bit of environmental chemistry mishmash of things. Let's see what else. What's my favorite tradition? I guess I'll go with a chemistry tradition that I love. And that is we every year when our chemistry seniors graduate, we have them all do a short 10-15 minute seminar on their thesis project in the department. But then afterwards, we all get together in the atrium of our building, and each chemistry senior gets to blow up a hydrogen balloon. Very loud, obnoxious, crazy, fun way to end their career at Reed.
I love that. That's great. Let's see. How about you know what's tell us about your area of expertise where you teach in your favorite tradition.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a professor in the economics department. I'm also in Reed's environmental studies program. I came to Reed in 1990. I don't want to do the math. It feels like I just arrived yesterday, but I have been here for quite some time and I love it. I'm just so happy to be at Reed. My area of expertise within economics, I am an environmental and I do a lot of research on flooding and flood risk and flood knowledge. In terms of my favorite Reed tradition, it just has to be thesis parade. And the
Mm.
tradition we have at Reed is that when students turn in their thesis, they receive laurels. And students walk around campus and they're wearing their laurels, and it's joyful, and you get to talk to them about their it's just a wonderful way for the community to come together and celebrate something students have been working toward thinking about during their time at Reed. So that's my favorite tradition.
End of the year. That is a fun one, isn't it? Hey, how about you, Tom?
Tom Landvatter. I am a professor in the Greek, Latin, and Ancient Mediterranean Studies department, the GLAM department, we call it. And I've been here 11 years, since 2015. That's when I started. And I am the archaeologist in the department. So I work on the archaeology of the Eastern Mediterranean, principally in Egypt and also in Cyprus, where I have an ongoing active field project where I bring Reed students every summer to excavate a military fortification from around the time of Alexander the Great. So there's more kind of subspecialties there, which I'm happy to talk about later. That's kind of the gist of it. And my favorite Reed tradition, I like the Ren Fair softball tournament myself. It is so Ren Fair is like after the thesis parade, sort of like during this weekend before orals, like is a huge kind of crazy campus-wide party. Which is mostly like all for the students, but there is a softball tournament which is often like departmental. And so the we lose terribly every year. We're awful at it. We're not very good. But it's also like everybody has fun, plays, kind of embarrasses themselves with our lack of physical abilities. But also how we can hit things, points for hitting things with textbooks and things like that. So we often get a big Latin textbook and try to use that to like hit the ball, and we get bonus points and stuff. So I always enjoy that. I look forward to it every year.
I mean, the nice part is that you have to lose twice, right, in order to be eliminated.
Oh, I thought we always just maybe we just lose so bad. It's always been like every time it's like once and it's like so bad. It's like 20 runs we're just like laps. So they like everybody we're
Right.
just like we did it. We're gonna go
Yeah.
home.
The admission office has a team, and we were equally terrible this year. We so fun. Um, first question for all of you. One of the things that students think about, yeah, are two things. What is it that Reed does that you think is like, let me say it differently. When you think about what you do in your department that folks may not find at other schools, that might be the way that your department teaches. And what is it within your field or within your department you think is particularly unique? And I often think that these points of distinction are helpful for students to understand how our department might approach education differently compared to some of their other options.
I'm happy to go first on that if you want. Only because we just had a yesterday came and was talking about kind of how we teach and how chemistry is taught across different colleges. And one of the things I thought that was really nice to hear, useful, is that she started and said, I came in not knowing much about Reed and what we're doing. And she's like, after all my conversations today, I realized, I'm kind of speaking to this, of that we're really in the chemistry department thinking about how we're teaching and how we're assessing our students' learning in non-traditional ways. And so a lot of classes in chemistry have projects that are associated with them. They were doing a lot of things with really being clear on our learning goals and having students come in and take those learning goals and learn and really have these one-on-one conversations with students, which I think mimics a little bit of what has traditionally been done maybe in the Hume courses and things like that, where they have these one-on-one paper meetings. But now we're having these one-on what did you understand about this question? What didn't you? And now here's a chance to try a different, similar question. And I think it is getting a higher depth of understanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
That's excellent. I'm going to come back to this idea of those one-on-one conversations that you have with students and how those might be transformative, particularly with that. Noah, Tom, either one of you?
Sure. So I mean, my department, the GLAM department, I'm always particularly pleased with the way that we have, even though we're a small department, because we're a small liberal arts college, we've been able to really kind of expand our curriculum beyond what is normal, traditional sort of Greece, Rome department like us. But we really have been, even with our small kind of department, being able to kind of push the boundaries of what is kind of included in that. We have courses. I mean, from my own perspective, I'm teaching courses on Egypt and Nubia, for example, getting outside the bounds of kind of a Western tradition. I have in those courses on not just me lecturing at them, like here's a bunch of stuff you have to know, but like giving them sites that they have to report on, really kind of learn very kind of detailed like knowledge of like some specific things right off the bat, but how I trying to put the onus on them to kind of get familiar with things and learning how to do that kind of research. And I've been also I've liked in my own in some of my own classes, one thing that I've done is to try to get kind of produce things that are beyond kind of just like here's a paper or here's like a do a test or whatever. And for in many students actually produce little like online entries for a big digital humanities project called Pleiades, where I've had students develop these things as part of a project where they basically have created an entry for an archaeological site, which is then a citable piece of research, but it forces them to engage with metadata and not so much the description, but what are the how do we actually know that something's real? Like prove to me that like this exists. What are your sources? And that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So I've been very kind of pleased with the way that our department has been doing that kind of work.
Fair enough.
And I can talk about in the economics department how we're integrating students into our research programs. And so that starts in the classroom where students are reading current articles. We're bringing in speakers. We're hosting dinners so students can interact with the speakers. There's a strong policy focus in the department. So we're also bringing practitioners to campus so that students can see how theory and then literature gets translated into real world applications. We in my department are all working with students during the summer as research fellows. I typically will have two students working with me. It's related to the research that I'm doing. And then something that I've been able to do for the past 3 years is take students with me to a professional conference during the summer. And it's their first conference. It's really exciting for them to be there. They're front center. They're at every single session they can possibly be at, and just really soaking it in and getting a sense of what it means to be a researcher. And then what's really fun is when they pivot to their senior year and they're doing their thesis and they're seeing how does this all build for that senior experience. Research is hard. It's fun. It's just frustrating as can be. And so that's what I think is really fun for me about how the curriculum's developed in my department.
Mhm. So going back to I feel like there's an intersection here between how engaging you are as faculty with the students. And there are a couple of things I like to tie in with this. The fact that like we're calling each other by our first name. Students call, which I think does something for the relationship. We talk about de-emphasis of grades. Like students do get grades, but we de-emphasize it. Can you talk about what those two things do for the learning environment or for your relationship with students?
I think that I teach in Human 110 as well. Where
And
the
Tom, can you say what Human 10 is?
So Human 10 is the required first year course that all students take that's focused on learning in particular like college level writing. And so one of the things that we do in that course is that we have a meeting with every student after every paper to go over everything to go over the paper in detail and have a conversation about it. And one thing with that de-emphasis of grades is that in my years teaching in that course, and this is expanded then kind of the tone is set in that first year and expands, is that the conversations I have with students are never about like the letter grade, right? It's never about like, oh, what did I get on this paper? A substantive conversation about the paper, the content, their argumentation, and then how to improve next time. And it really is a much more kind of a dialogue about like what are you doing? How like what are you going to do to get? How are we gonna? What are you going to work to improve on? And at the end of it, it's so much more successful because students really are focused on like improvement over time, like and thinking about like the actual thing they're producing rather than a kind of a letter grade. And I think that's a really great aspect of Read.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'd second that. I just handed back an exam in intro econ. Aren't like, I need to get this point. Why did you take this point off? It's all about, okay, so I'm not clearly understanding this concept. And so we sit and we work through it. And that's the goal, is to have students understand the material. And I think as a professor, I mean, it's just wonderful to have students who are really motivated by the material. It's just great. So I really appreciate that about Reed. And Miljan, your question about calling us by our first name, I just think it breaks down those barriers that, we're in this together. It's team effort. And so I welcome students to call me by my first name. There are some students, especially international students,
have much to add to that, except exactly, that's kind of what I was getting at before, those one-on-one conversations and that content is and building upon that content. And what I mean, I think in the chemistry department, one of the things that I didn't say that I really love, and I think we try to foster, and that kind of is brought about, is as faculty, we're asking each other questions, right? So it's not just I'm having conversations with students, but I'm also having questions with, and those aren't behind a door saying, hey, I don't understand this thing that I feel like I should understand, but it's with other students in the room to model that this isn't an end, right? We're still, even when I'm talking about a topic that I'm covering in intro chemistry, there's depth to those conversations, and there's still things that I struggle talking to other experts who might be more knowledgeable in that part of chemistry than I am. And so I think this idea that it's always a conversation and that the learning is never stopping is important. And I think that helps with that focus.
You all talk a little bit about, Samuel, I'm taking your question. I'm going to make it a bit a more broad. So maybe one or two people can talk about this. The intersection between majors and programs. And so, Noelwah, you have some experience with this, but I think that, at Reed, most students major in one thing and they may have a minor in addition to that. But we do often talk when our students are curious, their area of expertise often connects with another. How might they explore that formally? How might they explore that casually?
I mean, you can always design your own major, right? And we've had varieties of that. When you're saying that you're doing archaeology and GLAM, that, I had a thesis student just a couple of years ago that was a GLAM chemistry combined major thesis student, right? I learned a lot about archaeology that I knew nothing about. So there's the thesis is one way you can tie in those ideas together. Our buildings are all connected because they are all connected. There isn't really, chemistry and physics and biology. Try to draw a line between those and you're going to have trouble figuring out where that line exists. We have people, one of our biochemists she majored in physics, but she's transitioned into biochemistry. So I think we have lots of opportunities both within the STEM departments and talking to each other and working on research together and things like that, but also farther afield. And people are creative and we're open to those ideas.
I have another GLAM chemistry major starting off, actually. So it's
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should say also, I also have found students getting in, I have a class this term. I've been going and working with Jay Ewing a lot in the physics basement, 3D printing stuff. And the students then have gone off on their own from this class and they're just getting and doing all sorts of interesting stuff with it. So there is even sort of that interesting science. I'm going into the science building myself now as a humanities person. So
I just had an alum reach out to me over in January, and she's an art major and is doing some work on with glazes made from debris from the California fires. It was where she grew up, and her house and her elementary school were completely destroyed in that process. And so she had gone pottery, and she reached out to me, and she had me in intro chem, quite a few years ago, but reached out and said, I'm kind of interested in what's in this stuff, both for my own safety, but also how it might be affecting the glazes. And so there, it never stops that intersection between all of the different majors and those, connections you make during your intro courses, resources. And so it's kind of a fun side project we're working on.
Yeah, and the path of interdisciplinaries has a really nice home at Reed, where we've developed these programs that are pulling from different areas. Noelwah, do you want to talk about
Sure.
that a little bit?
So I'm currently the chair of Reed's Environmental Studies program. We have 5 different flavors. So this is one example of program. So students have broad training in the sciences. So they've got depth in the sciences. They have depth in affiliated fields. So there's chemistry, there's biology, there's history, political science, and economics. And it's a very popular major, and our graduates, I think, go out and do some pretty extraordinary things, to government, to going on to graduate work. And it's just really nice because, as Daniela and Tom were saying, there's this cross-fertilization that occurs because you have students coming from all of these different backgrounds, sharing knowledge, challenging each other. This is such an important topic to be working on. All hands on deck, all perspectives are. So I would say, I know Miljan, you have really nice web pages that talk about the majors at Reed, the minors at Reed, the established interdisciplinary majors, and that's just got a wealth of information for students.
And I will share that out for folks. Really straightforward, practical question. What are examples of the kinds of work on for GLAM?
Um, so I have a field project that I co-direct on Cyprus, where I have brought students pretty much every year since 2019, COVID accepting. And so I bring students there to get basic training in archaeological field methods and practice. Ancient military fortification. At least that's what we think it is, fortified military site. And students go there for a month. And most students, like many students in my department, have, and outside my department too, I've had bio majors, history majors, art majors, like a variety of students actually come along. Not many people have come there with me and have wanted to to other institutions who
Yeah.
also bring students. So it's a very kind of, and very, it's nice for students to meet people from other institutions as well. But I also help place students if they're interested and interested in something specific to try to get them placed in other field schools as well. I have a student who was with me in Cyprus last summer and now wants to get into bioarchaeology. So this graves and working with human osteology. And so they've been accepted into a program this summer in Croatia to go work on excavated human remains. So I try to also help place people into things that are useful for them. And I've had people come back multiple years too. I've had multiple students come back for 2 years in a row to Cyprus. And those people that come back, they end up usually which they present at a conference, one of the two big archaeology conferences. So we're able to also kind of incorporate student research and get people come to an advanced level by the end of it.
And is Latin more historically focused, more focused on history,
So this is a
on
specific major
language?
question. So for GLAM, we have two tracks to our major. One is the literature and language side, which is both Latin and Greek, history and archaeology, and the other side is a history and archaeology of the ancient Mediterranean, which has predominantly history and archaeology courses plus a smaller amount of one of the ancient languages. So we both teach both Latin and Greek. And I teach both a lot of the intro levels. I'm teaching intro ancient Greek right now, in addition to my archaeology classes. So
And very important question for everyone. Did you attend the Great Reedy Bake Off? Or have
I
you attended in the past?
I did not, but there was a long conversation about it in the hallway the other day, and the conversation ended up where we decided that we really just need a reason to all bring our favorite to campus and all share them to eat them.
Like a campus-wide potluck.
Yeah.
Anybody want to share what the Great Reedy Bake Off is?
I've participated in it.
Oh, really?
I think
Okay.
in the very first year, so I was on a team, and it was a combination of faculty, staff, students, and got together, and we baked and other people baked, and we were in Commons, I think, and there were tables set up, and it was judged, but not in a judgy way. Um, and it was just a lot of fun. It was the community coming together for kind of a fun event, and yeah, good food as well. But is the baking department. So we tend to bake, and occasionally we'll bring in baked goods for our students. So that's one of those, yeah, departments have personalities, and that's one thing my department's known for. One of my colleagues makes really, really great macarons. Ah, I always say that wrong. Macaroons. No, macaroons. That's what he makes.
I love it. I this year's was to rise and are for the first week. And then folks who are in that actually gets narrowed down a bit until the final contest. It was absolutely delicious. And just I also mentioned it because that's my favorite tradition that happens on campus. So one of the things I'm curious about is Kipple, that's a good question, very in depth. So I probably won't answer it tonight live, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me later and I'll see if I can help you out with that. Um, but we kind of brushed over it quickly with some assumptions that, you know, students are involved in research, students are involved in this. And I think sometimes if you're a high school student, we say research and they're like, how does that on campus? I go to class. How do I end up doing research with the faculty member? How do I end up being in a lab? How do I end up being published with them? Can you talk about a few ways that students have ended up doing research with you or at Reed? Um, um, the ways they stumble into it, the ways that they've identified you.
Along with information of who's hiring for research students and what they're kind of looking for. And so typically that's not always, or it's a mixture of students who have done research in the past who are continuing on things, and it's also students who have never done that. So it might be first year students, it might be after your first year, after your first semester, and we'll hire them to do small weekly projects. So it's going to be very directed, not so much on their own, but directed things that we need. And students can kind of build from there. So as they get more experience in a lab, they're going to have more independence, and they work more towards their own projects and their own ideas. So that's kind of the school year. And then in January, we have a seminar that we publish and advertise out to all of our chemistry classes that summer research, because there's lots of opportunities for summer research in the sciences and in chemistry. We hire students, and so we'll talk about how we hire students and what kind of research we're looking on that way. And then also there's lots of opportunities for experiences for undergrads across colleges throughout the United States, and some international opportunities as well. And so we try to help students through that process and hook them up for that. So most of my students that I personally have done research with have known from taking a chemistry course with me beforehand and then coming to talk to me more about it. Others, when we send out these things, we encourage students to, cold call, essentially, like send an email to a faculty of research that you're interested in. And so they'll send an email to me and see if they could set up a time to talk to me, and we just get talking and chatting, and then they end up applying. And I've had that relationship there and just those conversations. And so then I'll hire some students that way as well.
I think with me, like, I'm in the humanities, though humanities, social science kind of thing. I have students that are interested in archaeology. They come, they're taking my classes, they're really into it, they want to get field experience. And that's really where relationship research relationship starts, is with the field project. Because when they're on the field project, they're like, I mean, it's like being in a lab for like a month, basically. And then if they come back again when they have more responsibility, and I work with them to develop a project that's more focused, which they can do this kind of presentation on. For me, it's coming out of this initial interest in archaeology, coming on the project, and then kind of developing those skills further to do a kind of directed kind of research project, which can be presented. And I've done this with 3 students now, like in successive years, have been doing these kind of these research presentations, undergraduate research presentations at some of the big national conferences. That said, I also like try to alert students just generally like at how much like funding there is for this because like Reed does have a
Yeah.
pretty generous amount of funding for student research. I've for a number of years, I'm not on this year, but I've for a number of years I've been on the undergraduate research committee, which helps evaluate and administer all of these internal grants that Reed has, and there's a lot. Yes, and many in the sciences, but many that are for doing stuff just outside of Reed as well. There's this Summer Opportunity Fellowship Award that is available for find some sort of internship or program, and it doesn't have to be in the sciences. If you're interested in doing that, you have a mentor outside Reed, it's off campus. You can apply and get a really good amount of money to help fund that project. So it's like it's really great. And so there's a if like for students to kind of really pursue some of their own kind of interest, in particular during the summer.
Mhm. And I'm just going to double down on that. The idea that not only this research, and I think you've all illustrated this, happen in every department, the humanities and fine arts and STEM. Um, just last year, Carnegie Classification, the organization that sort of determines what type of schools we are researching and so forth, realized that through their process, they were really undervaluing the impact that small liberal arts colleges had on research. And as a result, they created this research college university designation and basically said these are small schools that are whose performance and if you look at the dedication of finances towards research, REIT is fourth on this list. And so of the 29 schools they added, I think that really illustrates that we students can be competitive fully in research early, published with faculty, that there's no sort of second tier status they have in terms of living out their interest in a deeply academic way. There are another question. Um, are there ever problems with students applying for more research spots than there are spots? I'll just start off by saying the Center for Life Beyond Reed, which is the organization of students add practice to their theory, is phenomenal for connecting students with opportunities. Reed is a well-resourced school. Our endowment is just under $1 billion, and one of the ways that we spend that money is by making sure that students have opportunities to take advantage of. And so, if there is something you want to do, and I've heard them, they will find you something to do. In addition, they also provide funds for students who want to do research, but perhaps that research is unpaid. So they will help provide money for you to live somewhere, do that research, because the experience is very important. And so I don't know if any of you have anything or any experiences that you've had firsthand with CLBR.
Million, I'd encourage you because the page that talks about the Reed sponsored grants is really fantastic. And it is something that I share with a lot of prospective students, admitted students, is look at the number and the variety of opportunities that you have on that page. Matter of just like thinking through, like, this is the experience I want to have my first summer, maybe my second summer. There are often, at least in economics, there are more students applying for positions that we have for summer research fellows than spots available. And so we'll encourage them to work with the Center for Life Beyond Reed. We might have some contacts. It's very likely that it's a student who's applied early in their time at Reed. And so we'll just encourage them like, oh, you need some more statistical training, and then you'll be, really well positioned to be part of our research groups. So eventually those students, I think, do get into research groups, even if on their very first try, they're not successful. But we have like working with us this summer. We're a faculty of 7. And I think it was just like maybe 1 or 2 who we weren't able to meet, find a way for them to work directly with us. But I know for me, there's one probably next summer. I'll be working with that student.
Very good. I think we have time for maybe a couple more questions if folks have Time for two more questions for folks to ask. In the meantime, one of, I think, if you all can talk about something that you think would be helpful for students to know as they're looking for colleges, once you're here, the experience is sort of in hindsight. There are things you've done that you didn't realize were really important. What would you take advantage of in their college career? And this could be social, it could be personal, it could be academic. But when students come back to you after they've been away for a while, the stuff that they really appreciate, whatever they really valued, because students might not imagine that on the front end. So if you gave them some sort of hindsight insight for what they could take advantage of on a college campus, what would that be?
The connections. I think
Hmm.
more than anything, that's what I hear students talking about is the connections they made, whether it be with faculty, other students, staff. I think those are the things that actually probably make the biggest difference. Sometimes it's because somebody knows you're interested in this thing and they happen to get an email about it and they can forward it to you, or it's just much more of it's less maybe career driven but also more social driven. Of that, those connections make a difference in your enjoyment of where you're at, and so taking the time to make those connections and foster them, I think, is really useful.
I agree with that. I think that's like something I think like students like it's like the community building stuff. It's like and making connections between students and faculty, alumni that network. I think that's something that's really important for students. I think if they look back, I was like, oh, I wish I had done some more of that. I think that's something definitely they think. And I think also, I mean, maybe no one has told me this, but I think it's true, is that I think that students take advantage of all the stuff that you're at a college for 4 years, go do the stuff that's there. Like take advantage of like all the talks that are coming, the Gray Fund, do that kind of thing. I think I know many students be like, I'm so busy. I was like, I know, but go do this stuff too, right? Like it's not there's stuff here, but it's beyond just like the classes and the coursework. Go to the talks, go do the events, do the extracurricular stuff, participate in the Reedy Bake Off, right? Because that's going to really make a rich and fulfilling college experience. And Reed has a lot of that, and I want students to like really take advantage of that.
Tom, tell folks what the Gray Fund is and what they do.
So as I understand it, I may imperfectly understand it. It's like it's a variety of like it's like sponsored student activities, which are just free, free for students to go. And I think it's a whole variety of things. Like sometimes just doing something downtown or going out like hiking in the gorge, going to see some like a movie or a concert or whatever. It's like it's kind of all over the place. But it's stuff that's like here, like if you want to sign up and go do it, get off campus the city because like I mean we're also like a small liberal arts college in a city which is like you want to take advantage of that as well because it isn't many small liberal arts colleges don't have that kind of urban kind of setting too.
And near beautiful natural areas.
Very
You've got Columbia
beautiful.
River Gorge, you've got Hood. I'm an avid hiker. I'm always telling students, take a hike. Got hiking books in my office. And so what Thomas was talking about is really that balance. And I think that's really important for students. My most successful students are students who are involved in student organizations, they're active in the classroom, they're getting off campus, they're going to the gym. Just finding that balance, I think, is really important.
Amanda Gray, she basically thought Reedies need to have these rich social lives away from campus. And I shared the link with folks. The events are really cool. Hot air balloon, sometimes skydiving, sometimes it's just theater. But I think one of the things that I want folks to walk away from here is understanding that while this could be a experience, you all are also immersed in the life of students, the culture, what happens on campus, and it's about the human beings and the relationships. I'm impressed that you all really doubled down on relationship. I think that says a lot. And we've got our last question. How interdisciplinary would you consider most programs? Because I have an interest in humanities, STEM, and law and business. and I'm very indecisive about picking a major. It could be quite daunting. So maybe two things. One is how interdisciplinary do you consider the programs, but also advising and how you help students navigate when they are our students are curious.
You want me to jump in? I can go
Yeah,
first.
that sounds great.
So my advice as an advisor, I always try and keep doors open as long as possible. That's really my goal, is to help students explore and to find their interests. So I had never taken an economics course or understood anything about economics before I went to college. And I took a course as a distribution course. And I thought, yeah, I can actually see, like I'm interested in policy, I'm interested in science. How do I combine these two interests? And so it was by exploring that I found my calling in life. And so that's how
And
I,
no, you mean the academic doors open, the
yeah,
options that students have. Yeah.
yeah. So, like in terms of majors, like exploring and just and trying. And sometimes you take a course or you do an internship and you discover, nope, or you do an informational
Mhm.
interview. Nope, that's not for me. That's just incredibly valuable information. And I think having those different perspectives and interests is actually, it's a strength. It's a huge strength, because we need those different viewpoints in order to, like, such a policy person, and so I just see this in policy is that when people come with those different perspectives, it just adds like a bright light to the conversations. So I applaud those multiple interests.
I mean, I would second that, is that when I'm advising students, it is keeping all options open. Like, what are your interests? So let's explore those. And I think it's often thought that you have to come in on the first day, and if you don't get started your first certain track, you're going to be behind. But I think that's not the case for almost all things you want to do at Reed. I mean, we have chemistry majors that don't even take chemistry until their sophomore year, and they're able to finish a full chemistry major, right? And so I think that's the thing that we're always looking at. And I think departments are working with you, and they're trying to make sure that you can, eventually figure out where you want to go. And I mean, really, you don't have to declare a major until your junior year.
Mhm.
So you got some time to really fully decide on that.
Well, I want to thank the three of you for spending some time this evening with their families and answering questions. This is really quite nice. And I also want to just encourage our students who are here. I know not everyone will get a chance to travel to campus, but we do have a lot of programs that are really designed to make sure that if you want to get here and you're in the continental US, that you will get here. And if you're not aware of those, let us know. Reach out to you, figure that out. But we know that being on campus is critically important to figure out if this is the place where you want to spend 4 years. We've got more programs around the way, but this is our last spotlight for a while. Our programs pick up again right ahead of April, and it's going to be a little bit different. We're doing office hours, so we do a deep dive within each discipline. So many of our programs will be represented not only by a faculty member, but most of them will bring a current student in to help talk through how you live out the life of a particular major or program. So those are our major deep dives, and we have one for each most majors and a few that might be combined, like fine arts. So come and check those out. We have read admit days that happen on campus. I know there are a few juniors here. We have junior visit days. But our goal is to help you make an informed decision about where you want to be for 4 years. And so you will hear from students, from Audrey, our president, from our dean of students, to help you figure out what you can add to your life. So glad you're here. Noelwah, Danielle, and Tom, thank you for coming. And we will talk to you all soon. I'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.